Last year around this time, I made a series of videos about the history of beat 'em ups. It was an ambitious project and a polarizing one since I separated the hack and slash titles from the genre and in doing so, omitted them from the history in my videos. Because of this, many amazing and classic titles were put aside, which angered many. The decision was done for many reasons which I will not go over in this video, but you can read about them in my video description. This series right here of videos will be solely committed to the hack and slash titles throughout the years. I will take a look at where it all began, all the way up to modern consoles. This series will try to keep things as chronological as possible, so we got a lot of games to cover. Enough talk, let's begin. If you ask any gamer where it all began, most will say Kung Fu Master is the father of beat 'em ups. I even had one angry viewer comment that I was totally wrong in that it all started with Bruce Lee for the Commodore 64. Regardless of what you think, hack and slash gaming had a different starting point. Most online would say that Prince of Persia was the origin of this offshoot of the beat 'em up category, but I disagree. After reading up online, and from what I can recall, I found Russian Attack by Konami to be the first known hack and slash title, which was released in 1985 and also got a nice NES port, where the majority of us gamers during that time probably played it. In the game, you infiltrate a Russian base and you end up stabbing anything and anyone that gets in the way. Soldiers? Check. Dogs? Check. Guys in helicopters? Oh, okay, sure. You were a non-stop stabbing machine. Once in a while, you would pick up a weapon such as a bazooka or even a flamethrower. It was ported to lots of game consoles and some computers. The arcade only has 4 stages, but the NES version has 6. And some power-ups were changed as well. Each stage also has a boss. The objective also changed from saving prisoners to destroying some kind of a missile. Now, for us back in the day, if you did not have a cheat code, it was considered almost impossible to finish this game. Capcom gave the genre a more fluent and refined combat mechanic when they released Trojan in 1986. As with Russian Attack, the title also got a decent NES port. You control a warrior as he traverses what seems to be a wasteland of some sort, armed only with a sword and shield. The game has 6 total stages, and each of them with a mid-boss and an end boss. The arcade has no real power-ups. You can also lose your sword and shield at certain points in the game, but they can be quickly equipped again. The NES port added a few features to the game. New power-ups, new rooms to access, and some new bosses as well. The NES port also had one-on-one versus mode. This game also had the annoying feature where you have to traverse the entire game twice to see the real ending. Good thing that the game is actually fun. Kidnicki arrived to the scene that same year in the arcades. It was developed by Irem, and the game was also published by them in Japan, but Data East took publishing rights when they released it in the States. Kidnicki incorporates more platforming elements to its gameplay versus Trojan or Russian Attack. The game has 7 total stages and each with an end boss. The game doesn't really use any power-ups or has any kind of upgrade abilities for the character. This game was also ported to the Apple II, Commodore 64, and the NES. On a little side note, the NES box shows pictures of the arcade game on the back cover. Yeah, good thing that the port is not too far off from the arcade version. Still, kind of a sneaky move there. Captain Silver was released in 1987 and developed, published by Data East. It is a simple hack and slash game where you control a sailor who is out for gold. The arcade has 3 stages, but the Master System port divides the last 2 into 2 parts. The NES also gives you more options in the item shop and changes some of the items' abilities. The game is pretty straightforward with some very light platforming and few power-ups. If you touch a fairy, she gives you the ability to shoot projectiles from your sword. Also, what kind of a sailor drowns when falling into a fountain? This next arcade game is a very little known title from the masters of Konami. Black Panther was only released in the arcades in 1987. In it, you play the role of a panther who seems to be, I guess, cybernetic or robotic, and you go from stage to stage, just mowing down enemies with your claws. The gameplay for this game is very fast-paced and it is easy to lose control of your character. Not only does the stage move along real fast, but the enemies come at you even faster, giving you very little time to react sometimes. It's a good game, but I can understand why it wasn't ported over to any of the home consoles or even the computers of that day. Still, if you come across this game or you have a chance to play it, try it out, you might like it. Now, this next game is such a classic, so well known that all I have to do is blast the music for it, and there is a high chance that you're gonna know exactly what game I'm gonna be talking about. Listen. Now, did you guess Rastan? Or is it Rastan? This arcade hit was released in 1987 by Taito. The amazing graphics and exceptional soundtrack placed you right into the action like few games did back then. The first level and its graphical style immediately threw you right into an amazing fantasy world full of lizard-like warriors, skeletons, manticores, one-eyed half-iron clad warriors, and that's just to name a few. The action is mostly straightforward except for stages where you must climb and do some light platforming. Amazing weapons like the Fire Sword and Morning Star aided you in your quest. But what was your quest anyway? Well, actually none according to the intro. This guy is such a badass that he just wants to tell his stories of adventures as he and his awesome sword traverse the world, killing anything that gets in the way. This game also got ported to many computers and the Master System. I actually played the Master System version quite a few times in my friend's house, and it was pretty good. If for some reason you have never tried this game out, stop whatever you're doing right now and go play it. It is a classic in every sense of the word and a great addition to the hack and slash genre. Capcom struck again in 1987 with Tiger Road. This action game had you taking the role of a martial arts master that is out to save the children that were kidnapped by rivals. When you start the game, you can actually select what stage to start off on. The game relies heavily on platforming elements as well as heavy emphasis on combat. There are many weapons to switch to, some giving you slight better reach than others. The levels of this game are varied in style and give you the sense that you are traveling in a rich fantasy world. This game got some decent ports, especially on the TurboGrafx 16. Tiger Road is non-stop action as only Capcom could deliver. But Capcom, however, was not done. Black Tiger was released in 1987 as well. In Japan, this game went by the name Black Dragon. This 2D full scrolling hack and slash title, like Tiger Road, had the distinction of being a fully open level style gameplay, meaning you not only traveled from left to right or vice versa, but you can also travel up and down on the levels as well. It consisted of 8 levels in total. You collect power-ups and Zenny coins, which can be used to buy items from the shops. Items can include upgrades as well as potions. This game is similar to Ghosts and Goblins in that the hero could lose his armor yet remain alive. This game was never ported to any home consoles. US Gold got the rights to port it to many computers, including the Atari ST and the Amiga. The gameplay and mechanics will be seen again in a future Capcom title. Jumping over to the console side now, in 1988, the NES got a breakout game from Tecmo. When they decided to port over their arcade hit Ninja Gaiden to the home side, they decided on implementing a few changes to the overall gameplay. This game was no longer a belt-scrolling beat-em-up game like the arcade, but rather a 2D fast-paced side-scrolling action game with plenty of platforming to keep things on edge at all times. The well-placed enemies and insane difficulty also heightened the replay value. You are gonna die in this game again and again, that's for sure. Get used to it. If not, it would beat you into submission. So, for the last piece added to the value of it all, was a cinematic storyline being played out between the levels. Gungle 13 on the NES had used cinematics slightly when it was released a couple months earlier, but Ninja Gaiden took it to a whole new level. The game was a massive success and helped launch the series to what it is today. If you want a true challenge, a real challenge, try and finish this game without using save states or cheats. Yeah, good luck. The few TurboGrafx owners out there were well aware of the amazing Ninja Spirit game when it was released in 1988. Most don't know, however, that the game was actually an arcade port, which was released that same year. The game was a 2D hack-and-slash action game from the masters in Iron. You control a ninja as he travels across 7 stages with a nice assortment of weaponry. You have the option of using your swords, shurikens, bamboo bombs, and this sickle and chain, which the manual calls the Rising Dragon. You could upgrade your weapons and add doppelgangers to assist you by collecting different colored orbs. This game was also ported to the Amiga, the Atari ST, and even the Game Boy, which actually is not bad at all. But the TurboGrafx version was an almost near perfect arcade port. A great game and a non-stop action gem from Iron. Now, 1988 had been a great year for the hack and slash genre, with some great classics being released as the young beat-em-up category was slowly gaining traction. In 1989, it would hit the ground running at full speed. Now, Tecmo was known for releasing some underrated games in the arcades, and this next one is no exception. Tecmo Knights, or Wild Fang as it was known in Japan, was released in early 1989. It isn't one of Tecmo's best known games, but it was pretty innovative. It brought the belt-scrolling format seen and used in regular beat-em-ups during that time, and implemented that style into the hack-and-slash genre for the first time. You get to choose from 2 warriors. Both are the same in terms of gameplay and moves, their only difference being their color. Now, you can play the game in 2 different ways: riding on top of a giant, and therefore making the game more like a traditional beat 'em up, or changing to a tiger. You can mount and ride, as the game then turns more into a hack and slash since you have a morning star as your main form of attack. The long range attack is less powerful than the giant's punches, so you have to decide how you're going to tackle the game. This title also is extremely gory. If too much blood makes you queasy or offends you, let Tecmo Knights cross all those boxes for you. Now, what is it with Tecmo and these end screens? They really aimed for making you feel guilty for not popping in another quarter in that machine. Man, that was brutal. Now, if Tecmo had brought the belt-scrolling format to the hack and slash genre, Sega was about to perfect it in almost every way possible. Golden Axe burst into the arcade scene in early 1989. Now, Sega probably did not realize it at that time, but it had just released one of the most influential hack and slash titles and overall arcade games of the 80s. It used amazing graphics, great gameplay, and an amazing soundtrack, and combined it all to give gamers one hell of a good time at the arcades. You can choose from 3 different warriors. Each came with a different set of fighting moves and overall fighting mechanics. Like Tecmo Knights, you can play 2 players at once, and the differences in fighting styles and even magic will have you experimenting with the characters to see which one is best for you. There aren't any power-ups other than the blue potions. The more you collect, the more powerful magic you can unleash on large armies of enemies. The Amazon fighter has the best magic out of all 3, with the dwarf having the least. In between levels, you will be woken up from your sleep to kick the crap out of these little guys in hopes of getting more potions before advancing to the next level. If you don't manage to get enough potions, don't fret. They also appear from time to time during the levels. And yes, you can still kick the living crap out of them. Now, the big feature with Golden Axe is the creatures that you can ride. The cool thing is not only riding them, but being able to use their powers to aid you in battling the henchmen of Death equals Adder. You know what? Which brings me to the question, why Death equals Adder? Why not Death Adder altogether? In fact, all their names are separated with a equal sign. Why? What the hell? You know what? Regardless of that, Golden Axe is an arcade classic that everyone must play at least once in their gaming lifetime. You won't regret it. Now, if Golden Axe upped the ante on hack and slash games, this next one kicked it up a notch a bit more. Konami had been making some amazing arcade hits during the late 80s, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was just perfection in the form of an arcade. They took the insanely popular Turtles franchise and used their arcade and overall gaming developing skills to bring to the masses one of the most influential arcades of the 80s and possibly all time. The game not only used the Turtles' name, but used it properly. The cartoon look and feel were perfectly ported to the arcade game. All the characters from the TV show made the transition intact, voices and all. The best part? You could have 4 players all playing at the same time on the 4-player cabinet. Now, the Turtles cabinet was not the first cabinet to implement 4 players at once, but it did it perfectly. All 4 Turtles fighting the Foot Clan at once, it was a gamer's dream come true. The gameplay was fast-paced and colorful. The voice-over quips were nicely spaced out during gameplay, lending more to that cartoon feel of the TV show. It was like playing the TV show in the arcades. All in all, the Turtles arcade turned out to be one of the most memorable cabinets of all time. Konami had hit another home run for their arcade lineup.
Who put the lights down?
Over on the TurboGrafx-16 side, owners of that little-known console had some good news when the legendary Axe was released in 1989. It brought hack and slash back to the 2D plane, but yet ran wild within that limitation. A simple hack and slash, yet the addition of the power meter for your axe swings gave the title a unique combat mechanic and feel. The use of the TurboGrafx colors and sprites gave the game an arcade feel, yet gave the gameplay enough replay value to keep players coming back for more. This game also had plenty of platforming to keep you on your toes from level to level. There are no shops here, no multiple weapons to choose from, no experience points to worry about. is just a good old-fashioned hack and slash with real solid gameplay that will keep you coming back for more. This title would become a classic for the TurboGrafx 16, and with good reason. Over on the PC side, hack and slash would take an interesting turn when the Prince of Persia was released in 1989. Jordan Mechner had a hit when he developed Karateka a few years earlier. When he was given freedom to work on a sequel to Karateka, he came up with the idea for Prince of Persia after getting some idea and inspiration from books such as the Arabian Tales. Since he felt he was not good at animating characters, he came up with the idea of using rotoscoping to give his characters proper animations to use in the game. The end result, once again, was a groundbreaking title that lit the PC world on fire upon release and has since become a cult classic that helped spawn a series. This game had you traversing a dungeon, looking for a way out, and also rescuing the princess. You also had the timer at the bottom of the screen to worry about. You didn't have all day to figure this out, you had to hurry. Along the way, you'd have to carefully traverse the dangerous catacombs, watching for spikes, dangerous falls, and even armed guards. The controls are a little tricky at first, but once you get the hang of it, the game becomes easier, as long as you have the patience to progress slowly. The Astian Axe was an arcade title that came out after Legendary Axe. I always thought that it was the other way around. The title was developed by ICOM and published by Jaleco. The control mechanics are the same, and the only difference between the two, other than the very vibrant graphics in the arcade, is your power meter. You don't upgrade or extend the meter, but if you let your meter fill to the max, your axe engulfs in fire for one powerful hit. You also get magic that can be used to clear out the screen with one wave of lightning. The game is stuck on the 2D plane, but the action is relentless here, and the bosses are pretty nice looking as well. Now, this is what you expected for an arcade title. What was also neat is that you can play the game co-op. The NES got a port of this game with many changes to the gameplay. Overall, Astian Axe might not be a classic, but it's a solid title nonetheless. In early 1989, Capcom struck gold again in the arcades when they released the hit Strider. The game takes place in the future and has you playing as a blade-wielding ninja by the name of Hiryu. The locales and the exceptional graphics are what make this game really stand out. The very beginning of the game has you paragliding into enemy territory and drops you right into the action. This right here sets the tone for the rest of the game. The music is outstanding, and the end bosses are truly something amazing to look at, with their designs being very creative and unique. This game got ports to many computers and some consoles, with the Genesis one being the most accurate to the arcade. Let's not talk about the NES port. Castle of Dragon was released in that same year as well, developed by Athena and published by Seta. It is an action game with minimal platforming, but had the distinct feature of having you battle enemies on two planes, similar to that of the Fatal Fury games. While not as open-ended as a belt-scrolling format title like Golden Axe, it does fit well with the gameplay mechanics in this title. You can pick up orbs to upgrade the power of your sword. You can also take several hits, and each one strips you of your armor until you have none. This title also got released on the NES in 1990. Now, I don't want to seem like I don't like the computers of that era. Targan was released in 1989 by Silmarils Gainstar. It is a fantasy action hack and slash that was also ported over to the Amstrad, Atari ST, Macintosh, and even DOS. This version that you see here is the DOS version. The graphics are a notch above anything seen on the home consoles, but the gameplay is slow and overall difficult. Your character, he's slow, and because of this, you have to carefully progress from screen to screen, with every one of them being a possible end to your quest. I wasn't able to get very far in this game, but I wanted to show it so you could all see what computer gamers were playing back then when it came to games like this. The home consoles could not match the computers in terms of graphics, but most computer games could not match the consoles in terms of gameplay. You kinda had to pick and choose your poison and run with it back then, since the majority of gamers had one or the other, but not both. And so it has come to this, the end of the 80s, and a little known arcade from Atari would keep the genre going before stepping into the 90s. Scalding Crossbones would be released sometime in 1989. It wasn't the first time a pirate theme on a hack and slash would be used, but Atari brought to it their unique gameplay and graphical style to the genre and infused some great swashbuckling fun to the mix. What you get is a hack and slash game that stood on its own in a landscape that was becoming crowded in the arcades, and on the home side as well. At the beginning of the game, you board a ship that belongs to a wizard. He zaps you back to your ship and takes all your loot. So the rest of the game has you going from level to level as you search for the wizard so you can retrieve your stolen booty. Yeah, I said it, booty. Atari were on a roll in the arcades during those times, and this title right here is no exception. The cartoony graphics mixed with the catchy soundtrack that is reminiscent of a pirate theme game makes this one a solid title to try out. Not many people out there played this one when it was out in the arcades. Luckily, it was ported over to many computers and the NES. The NES had to change it from a belt-scrolling hack and slash to a 2D one when it was ported. But it's still an okay title, it's not that bad. Give this game a try if you can get your hands on it. And so this game right here brings us to a close for the 80s. Beat 'em up games, whether hack and slash or not, were experiencing a surge in the arcades and at the home console side. Companies such as Capcom, Konami, and other heavy hitters would hit the ground running once the 90s came around. Some truly memorable titles were on the way, and arcade gamers everywhere would be in for a treat. Stay tuned, part 2 featuring the 90s is coming and you don't want to miss it. In the meantime, keep watching, keep gaming, and as always, take care of yourselves.